It is truly hard to believe how much things have changed at Michigan since last year. Even a few years ago when they were winning the national championship with Jim Harbaugh. And listen, I know there's a lot of controversy there. I don't want to get into Connor Stallions or anything like that today. But it is amazing how, even like I said, a calendar year ago, how different things were with Jerome Moore being the head coach and the fallout of that controversy and him no longer being the head coach. And now you get Kyle Whittingham. Who in the world saw that coming? Kyle Whittingham has been at Utah for 3 decades, and now he is the head coach at the University of Michigan. All he did at Utah was win. Certainly built that program into a future Power 4 team after I remember them beating Alabama in the Sugar Bowl and it being such a big deal in like '08. It was one of the non-Power 4 schools who broke into the BCS, and then all of a sudden now they got into the Power 4. They've been a fringe playoff contender last year, just outside the top 10, top 15 most of the year. And now he's at Michigan, though, where expectations are going to be through the roof. I don't mean to say that expectations weren't high at Utah, but they are very high at Michigan. And this is going to be a very different feel for Whittingham. Guys, listen, we're talking about Michigan today with Kyle Whittingham at head coach. You're listening to the You Think You Know Sports podcast. You found the podcast, but you can find us on Spotify or Apple, Amazon Music. There's so many places to find us. You can also find a lot more on Michigan and the other teams that I talk about on this podcast in a lot of places. One being on my TikTok page where I have over 10,000 followers. That's kind of where all of this started. It's still a fairly young TikTok page. We do deep dive analysis and research. We've branched out to other social media as well. Very, very new, just like this podcast. Not a lot of followers there, but if you love YouTube, you love Facebook, all those places, you can find us there. And then there's a ton more information on youthinkyouKnowSports.com, spelled with U's, not Y-O-U. We're not using proper grammar here because this is 2026 and people don't like to type. So youthinkyouKnowSports.com, find us there. Whittingham was 177 and 88 at Utah. He's been the head coach since 2004. Michigan has not had a losing season in a full season since 2014. Obviously, COVID is included in that. They were not good that year. There were some rumblings about Harbaugh's job, if you guys remember back then. Obviously, he turned things around, but expectations are very high, as those stats just remind you. Michigan expects to win. They expect to be in the playoff. I believe that Whittingham would expect to be there as well, obviously. Michigan averaged 27.5 points per game last year, number 57 in the country. They averaged just slightly under 400 yards per game, number 45 in the country in yards per game. They passed on only 42% of their plays, only 113th there, and they only threw 26 passes per game. That also is number 113 in the country. Defensively, they allowed 20 points per game. That was 21st best. And they allowed 323 yards per game, 22nd best. You can see the defense carried this team, and the passing game struggled. Bryce Underwood enters year 2. Brought so many expectations with him. Maybe too many for a freshman in this age of college football with what they dealt with early, with those road games they had to play. Michigan had to go to Oklahoma. They had to go to Nebraska early in the year last year. Obviously, still started 3-1, lost the game at USC, but a few weeks later. But Bryce Underwood, not what we thought last year. 60% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns, 9 picks. The last 6 games of the year, he had 4 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, right? So, the numbers were never good enough all year, but they certainly got worse toward the end of the year when the schedule toughened up a little bit. They played Texas and Ohio State in their last 2 games of the season last year. Most quarterbacks would struggle in that situation. Underwood ran it 88 times, had 6 touchdowns rushing last year as well. His completion percentage was 65% when he was in a clean pocket, 9 touchdowns and 6 picks. 43% under pressure, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks in that situation. So a couple things. First off, as a quarterback, especially a collegiate quarterback, when you're in a clean pocket, can't turn the ball over, too many mistakes there. And then you expect everybody's completion percentage drops under pressure. his has got to improve. It can't be in the 40s. I think he needs to be in the high 40s if nothing else there. He threw 55 passes, 20 plus yards deep. Consider those deep balls. That's a PFF stat. 34.5% completion percentage, 4 touchdowns, 4 picks. He honestly threw it deep more than I thought he did. From watching Bryce Underwood play last year, from watching Michigan play, he actually threw more deep balls than I expected that number to show. We'll see if they can hit a few of them more this year. Michigan is returning 51% of its snaps. 62% of those are on offense. This is a team that returns 7 guys on offense. So outside of Underwood, they've got Channing Goodwin coming back. They've got Andrew Marsh coming back. Both of those guys are receivers. You got 4 guys on the offensive line. Blake Frazier, Evan Link, Andrew Sprague, all of those guys are back, right? You've got a lot of talent there on the O-line. Jordan Marshall, likely to be the running back, over 900 yards, 10 touchdowns last year. And then Savion Hitter will also be there, a 5-star running back who has come in, who should play a role in the backfield as well. The receiving core outside of Marsh, who's had 651 yards last year, and Goodwin, J.J. Buchanan comes over from Utah. Jamie French comes over from Texas. He was a very, very highly recruited player. Texas and Florida, I think, is who it came down to for French. I think he had 1 catch last year, right? So we'll see if he can actually play a bigger role this year with Michigan. Defensively, and not too unexpectedly, they brought in a lot of guys from Utah, right? I mean, that's typically what happens in college football. Your coach transfers, you follow him. If you think that things are going well, you think that you're going to have a chance to move up, play a lot, especially on a bigger stage. And I'm not hating on Utah, where they play very good football and would have beaten Michigan several times over the last few years. But they follow. A lot of guys did that. So John Henry Daly had 11.5 sacks last year. Defensive end, an All-American defensive end, has followed over to Michigan with Whittingham. And basically the whole coaching staff, it feels like, came over as well. The secondary is going to be pretty good as well for this Michigan team. They've got starting cornerbacks Jair Hill and Zeke Berry back. They've also got Rod Moore back at safety. They brought in Smith Snowden from Utah and a guy from Memphis, Chris Bracey, to play safety. So Memphis has got a pretty good secondary in place. They do need to worry about the linebacker position, where there's not quite as much there to build off of, at least not experience-wise. Doesn't mean the linebackers can't surprise us. This schedule, though, really caught my attention. So the one thing we talked about a lot on my TikTok show last year, everybody wanted to start talking about these games well before the season came about. We were talking in August, and people wanted to talk about the Oklahoma game in week 2. Nebraska fans wanted to talk about the Nebraska game in week 4. And those were both road games. This year, Michigan's first 4 games are at home. You got to come to the big house, Oklahoma. You got to come to the big house, Iowa, week 4. So Western Michigan, Oklahoma, UTEP, and Iowa in that order in the first 4 weeks. First road game is Minnesota. Listen to this, guys. Michigan will play 1 road game before Halloween. 1 road game before Halloween. The Halloween game, well, let's do this first. After Minnesota, the first road game, they play Penn State and Indiana back-to-back. But they're both in the big house. Then the road game is at Rutgers. They play at Rutgers on Halloween. Then they play Michigan State, in-state rival, Sparty and the Wolverines on November 7th. The last 3, though, make up for just about everything I've said complimentary about the schedule. I mean, really. I've said so many positive things toward Michigan's favor with playing. By the time you get to mid-November, they've played 2 road games all season. Okay? Minnesota and Rutgers. Sign me up. That's what Michigan fans are saying. Sign me up, baby. We like our chances. But the last 3 games, November 14th at Oregon, you got to go to Autzen Stadium and play the Ducks with Dante Moore back. Maybe the preseason number 1 team, at least the top 5 team. You host UCLA the next week, so UCLA's got to make the long road trip to Ann Arbor. But then you finish the year going to Ohio State, to your rival, who finally figured you out last year, right? After Michigan had turned this rivalry, even though Ohio State had won the title a couple years ago, Michigan pulled the upset. You got to go to Columbus this year, where Ohio State would absolutely love to just absolutely run it up if they can on this Michigan team. They have everybody back. It feels like we've almost gotten to the Buckeyes with our previews here as we go through an ABC order. So while Michigan's schedule starts with 2 road games before mid-November, it ends with 2 of the toughest places to play in all of college football, Oregon and Ohio State. So I'd love to hear from Michigan fans about what they think about this schedule and what this team's going to look like this year. My final thoughts on this team, Underwood's got to be better. I mean, I told people, you can go back and look at the comments. You can go watch the videos. I was like, man, you guys are asking a lot of a freshman to go to Norman and win. I didn't pick Michigan to win in Lincoln. I thought that was the biggest game Nebraska had played in a long time. They had Dylan Raiola, who's now at Oregon. I was like, man, watch out. Watch out for Nebraska. Michigan beat them, right? They beat them in Lincoln, and, things were going well, right? But it was a lot to ask of Underwood, and we kind of saw that as the year went on. Even though this was a team that got to that Ohio State game with just a couple losses, could not keep up with the Buckeyes in that game, and then Texas beat them in the bowl game. So Michigan, with their lack of offense, was still good enough last year to win 9 games, right? 9-4, 7-2 in the Big Ten. But in a deep, deep Big Ten, I think the passing game is going to have to be better. There are questions at receiver. We'll see about the running game, which they're going to be able to run it with Whittingham. You would expect that. The offensive line, Whittingham had just had 2 tackles taken in the first round of the NFL draft, right? So with 3 guys back on the offensive line, or 4 guys, you would expect Michigan to be pretty good there as well. And then we'll see about the defense and the changes. With only 3 real returning starters, but you add in a lot of those guys from Utah and some of the other transfers, they should be fairly stout there as well. You are listening to the You Think You Know Sports podcast. I hope that you'll venture out. You'll try to find my content in other places if you love this podcast. We're continuing to make our way through college football. There are 138 Division I teams this year in the FBS, trying to get to all of them before the season starts. So thank you for listening. Next up in the Big Ten is, as you can guess it in ABC order, Michigan State. So we'll talk about the Spartans soon. I appreciate you guys listening, and we'll see you then.